Hello, this is Coach Brian with the Personal Trainer Playbook. And today we are going to go over the 5 worst exercises in personal training. So, what do I mean by worst? Well, they're not bad exercises, they're not useless exercises, but these are the exercises that in a personal training setting with personal training clients, I feel are the worst in terms of their relative value based on how much I see them used in the gym and used on social media. Okay. So don't be a little child. Don't get your panties in a twist because I say something's bad. I don't necessarily mean it's bad. All I mean is in the personal training context, I think there are better options, and I will explain to you why that is. All right. So let's jump right in. Number 1, Olympic lifts. So I realize these are multiple exercises, not just one, but this group of exercises I do not like in a personal training setting. And let's start with the good. What's good about Olympic lifts? Well, they're great for power development, great for overall athleticism, and then overall badassery. They're just cool fucking lifts to do. Cleans, snatches, jerks, heaving shit above your head. It's very, very technical work and very, very impressive. But in the context of personal training, it's not the best option for people. So the bad, again, it's too technical. Teaching Olympic lifts and getting good at Olympic lifts takes time. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but in a personal training setting, you don't have a ton of time for just teaching the nuances of lifts to people. You want to get the most bang for your buck in terms of the exercises you are choosing that get the best outcomes for people with the lowest possible learning curve. And the Olympic lifts are just the exact opposite of this. Super high learning curve, not the best outcomes for people in terms of what they're really looking for, which in most cases is muscle growth and hypertrophy. And these are just not great options for that. They also, require quite a bit of mobility that most people just don't have. So for that reason, they're just not great for personal training clients. What can you do instead? Kettlebell swings are great if you want to get some lower body explosive power. For just general power in plyometric work, I always go with medicine ball throws and jumps because they're simple to coach. They're simple to execute. They can be done with explosiveness, and they can be done at the beginning of a session before you get into the heavier stuff. All right, number 2, farmer's carries. So I see farmer's carries a lot in my gym, and the one thing that is most common with me seeing farmers carries are me seeing some people that are pretty fucking bored that are doing it. And it doesn't mean, again, that farmers carries are useless. We'll start with the good. They're good for grip strength and endurance. They're very easy to execute as long as you know how to walk. And they're good for building upper back strength, although they're not the best hypertrophy exercise, again, because we're not taking any of the muscles through a full range of motion. You're getting an isometric contraction of the upper back. You're contracting your forearms. You're going to build some endurance there, but you're not going to get super jacked doing farmer's carries. The bad is, what are you actually training? Are you training your ability to carry shit around? Okay, maybe, I guess. Are you trying to get a big back? Okay, choose 10 other things other than farmer's carries. Are you working on endurance and athleticism? Not really, because you're not really moving that quickly. So you're not really training anything very specific. And again, these are just boring to do. If you can make it fun and do some sort of relay race, let's say you're training a group and you're doing a relay race with farmers carries, maybe if you're giving people a distance goal to beat week over week and something that they can get really excited about, okay, that's different. But just picking up 2 kettlebells and walking up and down the turf is boring as shit. So what can you do instead? Even suitcase carries where you're loading one side is going to be, to me, a little bit more beneficial because you're getting some abdominal work on the opposite side and you're really working on nice and balanced and working on some stability. And then anything that's heavy is going to train your grip. So if you do pretty heavy trap bar deadlifts, pretty heavy straight bar deadlifts, which we'll talk about later, anything that's relatively heavy, you will be training grip. So it's not necessary to do farmer's carries, especially since they're so boring. Number 3, battle ropes. What the fuck is a battle rope anyway? It really just sort of looks like you're jerking 2 people off at the same time. It doesn't really have any specific training benefit. I guess we'll start with the good. I guess it could be a grip endurance exercise. It does make you tired. So in a personal training setting, if you just want to gas the client, you could, throw them on the battle ropes. And then I guess you're training your arms. There's a little bit of elbow flexion and extension. So maybe some bicep and tricep stuff. Okay. And shoulders, maybe. But again, what are you actually training? What is the goal of this specific exercise? The only scenario I find this useful is if your goal is to gas this client, which I'm not really sure why you'd want to do that, but if that's what you're aiming for, great. I just don't see any use for it. I don't even think it looks cool. I think it looks stupid, but some people think it looks cool. I guess that's a reason, but not a great one for me. So what can you do instead? Well, if I want to train some conditioning, you can do air bike sprints. These are going to get you huffing and puffing just as much as battle ropes, if not more, and they're way more specific and way more applicable to actual endurance. You can do wall balls, which again aren't the greatest exercise in the world, but it's something that's a little bit different and novel for the person if they want to actually work on some leg strength with arm strength. And then if you want to work on arms, do bicep curls and tricep extensions for high reps. If you're trying to get a pump and you're trying to get a burn in your arms, just go do the classic bodybuilding stuff that's actually going to grow muscle and not make you look like a fucking tool. Okay, number 4, the barbell hip thrust. The good. This thing builds a booty. No doubt about it. People like it. Chicks dig it. You can slap a bunch of plates on there. You can heave those plates around. Looks kind of cool when you got 4 plates on each side. I totally get it. It is a good glute building exercise. Again, from a personal training perspective, it is a pain in the ass to set up barbell hip thrusts. You've seen all this all the time, people walking around the gym, getting their boxes, getting the plates, rolling over the plate. I can't find the pad. Where's the hip pad? It takes them 20 minutes to set it up. It's hard to superset because you're down underneath the bench and the bar, and you have to get up to go do the other exercise and then get back down. It's just not that practical. If you want to have a whole session where all you do is hip thrust for an hour, great, have at it, but it's not that practical in a personal training setting. There is limited range of motion on a barbell hip thrust. There's not a great stretch position or a eccentric phase of the lift, which is not great for muscle growth. So it's a kind of shortened position glute exercise. And you kind of see this too much too with especially women ego lifting, which is like now essentially the women's version of the bench press for men, where they heave as many plates up there as possible. They're using their entire body to get the weight up, and they're not really contracting their glutes in a way that's going to be specific for glute hypertrophy. So what can you do instead? Single leg hip thrust on a bench are really, really challenging for people, and it doesn't require as much of a setup. You just literally sit across a bench, get on one leg. You're going to bang out reps on each side. If they need extra load, you can throw a dumbbell on their lap. It actually gets a pretty good stimulus for most people with 1/100th of the pain in the ass of setting it up. Any sort of squat at a deep range of motion or a deficit reverse lunge is a great glute exercise because you're putting that glute in that full stretch position, again, which is beneficial for hypertrophy. Even the same can be said on a leg press. If you get on a leg press, get your legs a little bit higher on the press, get as deep as possible, you're going to get a good glute stimulus from that as well. Okay, number 5. The number 5 worst exercise in personal training, the straight bar deadlift. All right, some people are going to get pissed here. The good, it's the GOAT for lower body lifts. You can argue with the squat, but the deadlift is the king of lifts. It's just cool to be able to pull a bunch of weight off the floor. You will get really, really, really strong doing deadlifts, and you look like a badass. If you can pull, 4 or 5 plates, that's pretty cool. Now, is that going to be the goal for a lot of your personal training clients? No, of course not. And here's why it's bad again. The deadlift is sneaky technical. It's not as easy as really even a squat or a bench press. You would think, oh, you just bend over and pick up the bar. Yeah, but there's a lot of ways to fuck it up. And in the process, there's a lot of ways to fuck your back up. So there is a high axial load. It's putting a lot of load on your spine. Now, some people need that in order for their spine to grow stronger and more resilient. But in heavy doses, it can be problematic. And again, kind of like the Olympic lifts, a deadlift is a great strength builder, but there's not a ton of hypertrophy for a specific muscle group. Hamstrings, glutes not going through a full range of motion. Quads not going through a full range of motion. You will get some stimulus from the upper back, again, from holding the bar and holding a lot of weight. It's great for your grip for pulling a lot of weight, but you're not going to get a hypertrophic response that greatly from a single individual muscle group. And if that's what the client is looking for, this is not the best exercise for them. So what can you do instead? Trap bar deadlifts, again, I don't love them for hypertrophy because of the exact same reasons I just went over, but they're a little bit more user-friendly. You get to use a neutral grip. You don't have to bend down quite as much, and most people can do them in a much more safe way than a straight bar deadlift. Kettlebell deadlift, same thing. Romanian deadlifts, if you're worried about hamstring hypertrophy, a Romanian deadlift is just a better option. You're getting a better stretch in the hamstrings. You can control the weight better on the eccentric phase, and it's just a better exercise in terms of hamstring development. Same thing with good mornings, and you can do those relatively safely as long as people have the requisite mobility to do those movements. Okay, that is the 5 worst exercises in personal training. Hit me in the comments below if you got any more suggestions.